It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Welcome to Retire Repurposed. I'm your host, Jared Sebesta. We're going to get right to the show today. Since publishing his book, Repurposed, the Untold Story of Retirement in America in 2017, Ben Taatjes has persistently expanded his message about redefining the narrative surrounding one's post-career years. A reoccurring theme in Ben's book is this growing recognition of the profound impact and positive aspects of employment on individuals both before and after retirement. In this episode, Ben Taatjes breaks down 4 reasons why work remains an integral component of a person's life regardless of their retirement status. Enjoy this episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Jared Sebesta here joining you on Retire Repurposed. And like I've said before, if you're new to the show, we have new listeners all the time. This is a podcast on retirement, but it's going to give you a little different flavor on what retirement's all about. It's not just retiring from work, but redefining your purpose, redefining your life, repurposing yourself. And something we're going to talk about here today, most certainly, is again, where are you going to find your purpose? Where are you going to find your identity? Work has given you a lot of really great things over the years. And if you think that you can just eliminate that work out of the life equation and life is going to be so good just because you eliminated work, I think your expectations are going to fall short with a lot of respect. So again, welcome to the show if you're new. And if you've been listening to us over the course of years, we've been doing this podcast now for 4+ years. Again, this is going to be a show where we're going to challenge you and encourage you to take your life down a different direction than what society would have you do it once you establish your life in retirement. Ben Taatjes joins me on the show now, and again, we're going to talk about this idea of repurposed, and we're going to start to kind of think about maybe 7 years ago when you were stumbling across this idea, I don't know if stumbling is the right word, that you could start a platform or write a book and have this message of redefining your purpose in your life in retirement.
Yeah, Jared, I can't believe it's been 7 years. You look back on that time and what's happened since. I have a podcast, and you've been there since the beginning. You remember those days. I mean, I think we came together and we're chatting about, really ways to impact more people. And the idea of you doing an ebook or almost like just a really short, white paper became a full out book, and now a platform, an idea that has become a lot bigger than just that book. And I think about what would I do different? What things have I learned since then? I mean, it was really my career 20, well into my 20 years now, and these last 7, as I've been talking with people about the book, we continue to learn. We continue to come up with new ideas and new thoughts, and that's why we're working on another revision to the book, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. But there's so much that life has taught me even since writing the book.
I think that's just kind of the way life is. First of all, when you share your story, on platforms like this regularly, I mean, there's literally hundreds of episodes of this show out there, and as you wrote the book 7 years ago, going on 8 years ago, sharing this, taking its wisdom and to the meetings and sharing it with clients and what you've done. The natural progression is to evolve, and so I think it would be impossible for somebody not to write a book and 10 years later look at it and be like, oh, I wish I didn't even know. You just don't know what you don't know at the time, right?
Well, you don't, and Jared, I can't believe how many doors this has opened. I think conversations that this has opened for me with clients to dive a lot deeper than their finances. I mean, and we know when you look at what we do for clients, even in our logo, time, talent, treasure, there's those 3 T's baked right in the logo where, we talk about treasure. We talk about stewarding resources that God has given us and that God's given our clients. How do we best steward them? But most people, if they're honest with themselves, is the money doesn't matter nearly as much as their time, right? And it doesn't matter as much as their talent, their abilities. I've been walking through with a family lately that is, they're this woman's dad is on his deathbed, and it's hard, right? You look at those end of life situations, and it's almost always, no matter how wealthy somebody is, it comes down to the most important things, and the family by their side, and they're talking about memories.
Yeah.
They're talking about nothing financial. It's always the people that are in their lives that are most important. And I think what the conversations that the book has brought up to me, what I've learned from clients, I mean, that's something I am so full of gratitude for in this line of work. 20 years of sitting with incredibly wise people who have lived life. And I get to hear those stories. And this book allowed me to bring up more of that conversation with my clients.
Yeah, this is a different conversation for another day. But we've actually done shows talking about the importance of your story and how, so when you share your story, not only are you helping shine your own light, you're helping other people kind of see things and their light gets turned on. And as a result, you end up kind of learning more. And so I think that's kind of what you're experiencing by leveraging all the wisdom in your book. Just talk about this process before we jump into kind of some things that you've learned in the last 7 or 8 years. But talk about the process of kind of getting these thoughts down on paper and what that was like for you.
Well, originally, Jared, you remember when we wrote the first book, it was a bunch of journal entries. It was me taking down meeting notes from people that made impacts on my life that I said, hey, I know I want to tell this story, right? And if anybody hasn't read Repurposed, like the original book, we'd love to get you a copy. But essentially, the whole idea was birthed out of a pretty significant mistake, right, in my career where I kind of gave, I guess it's what I call in the book, the worst advice I've ever given, where I had somebody who wasn't ready to retire. They were at, kind of just doing the study of if they could retire in a few years. And I had them, you can retire right now. And we both felt like that was a win. That was a great thing for the individual. Let's get you retired as soon as we possibly can. Yeah. And what I learned from that, and that's I think what really has come up since, is I underestimated the value of work. I underestimated the value of what we were created to do on this world. For many of us, it is to be somebody who works and creates.
We spent a lot of shows talking about work. Why do you think work just gets such a bad name? Because it just seems like people kind of are clench fist, like just trying to get to the finish line so they can end work. Not that there's anything wrong with retiring away from work. Obviously, that's not what we're saying. But to your point, there are so many good things with it. Why does it get this bad name?
Well, I think some of it's because people are in the wrong job. I think if you talk to somebody who loves their work, and I love that when I talk to somebody that's nearing retirement, and they start saying things like, "Well, it's time for me to retire." I'll ask why, and well, it's because I'm kind of to that age, right? And well, I should retire, right? I'm like, well, I don't know. Should you? I mean, do you like what you do? Yeah. Is your company want you there? Yes. I mean, all these reasons to stay. It's fulfilling, this purpose in your life, which is great. Too many times, I think society tells us that work's bad. Remember, there's an entire industry around getting people to retire, and then kind of showing them why life starts when you retire. That's really what the business is about, right? So I'm pretty certain that the word retirement's not in the Bible anywhere, Jared. Right? I mean, it doesn't talk about that. So it talks about work and rest, and how we're able to add value to others. That's all over in the Bible, but never this word of retirement and just be done. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm also not a proponent of people working their entire lives, but I think recognizing the value of work is one of the most important distinctions that I think I'll make in the revised book. It's like we talk about purpose, but really I think people need to understand there is huge value to work. The whole, whether it be 9 to 5 or career type focused person, either of those people need to realize that your work has played a very important part of your life. You can't just walk away from it and think that things are going to be just fine.
We're talking about what you've learned since publishing your first book, Repurposed, The Untold Story of Retirement in America. You mentioned how the positive aspects of work probably is something that you could really expound upon. I've heard this said, I'm going to kind of throw you this nugget or curveball, see what you say to this. You mentioned that a lot of people are maybe working in jobs and careers that they shouldn't be doing for the most part. There's this kind of side of personal development that's like live a life that you don't want to retire from. Is it possible to have that type of mentality while working? Is it possible to look at your job and your career from that lens?
Yeah, it is, Jared. I think I talk to people all the time that have that are able to look at their stage of life that they're going through, the work that they're doing, and that doesn't necessarily mean like somebody who is, running this company and they're taking a lot of time off, et cetera. I mean, this is people that are day to day, like, if you want to call it a blue collar worker, that just love what they do. I'm able to create, I'm able to add value, no matter what the type of work they're doing. There are a lot of people out there that really enjoy going to work. Not every day, right? I mean, we've all got parts of our job that we don't like, but I think for people to think that, I'm just stuck in this career, I'm stuck in this work, and that's just what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I mean, if that's you, look to make a change.
Exactly.
Look to what do I really want to do? What are my skills and talents? There's a good chance that you're in a line of work that maybe doesn't fit you, and I think people have to be open to that idea.
I think people would be. It would hurt more to work that job, and like let's say you're 8 years away from retirement and it's not a great fit, and you may be out of alignment, and you're hearing somebody like you say, like, it would be more worth it to make a change because it's going to make the next 8 years better, and you could argue it's going to make your retirement better, because if you're going to work a job that is out of alignment, that isn't fulfilling, it kind of creates like an unhealthy expectation for retirement as well, right?
It does. Some people think that retirement's going to just
fix everything,
and it's not. You should come into retirement in a good place.
Right.
You should not be like, okay, my life's bad now, I just got to get to retirement, then things will be okay.
Yeah.
Fix your life before you retire. If you've got problems at work and you're not enjoying what you're doing, try something different. There's a good chance that retirement isn't the answer to making your life better. It's actually something else in your life that's making it that way. I mean, Jared, I'm almost positive that we will work in heaven. It's one of the things I'm going to add in the next book is like, we will work. God, envisioned when He created us, He saw us working. That we were working in the garden before the fall. Yep. And I think that's something that people need to realize is we will. I mean, I'm convinced after reading the Bible that we will work in heaven, but we won't have the thorns, right? No. It'll look different. Those bad days won't be there. Probably we will understand the reason we're working, right? To be closer to the image bearers of Christ, who He also, God, our Creator, created. Yep. So I think it's going to look a lot different, but I'm convinced we will work.
I think it's interesting that one of the biggest things that you've learned or expanded on since writing the book back in 2017 is this whole idea of work. And I think that the irony in it is that retirement is like, when people say the word retirement, that means work no more. And here we are spending a large chunk of time talking about how great work is and how we'll work in heaven. Talk about what kind of work, like, because work can look like a job to so many people, but work, the reason why work is good is because you're using the things that God has given you to kind of make that correlation and make that connection for people.
Well, Jared, humans are creators, right? We're designed to make things better. Like if you look at all animals, right, we're the only ones that have these two things in common. The second one I'll talk about in a minute is that we are social beings, and we have this identity beyond, like, we're created we're created as image bearers of Christ. Okay, but we also are designed to create. We're designed to be problem solvers. So because of that, we find it's more than identity. We find purpose in work. When we get closer to fulfilling what God put us on earth to do, our current purpose, we're going to feel more full. We're going to feel more alive because we're doing those things. That's another reason I think, even Jared, when we look to like social systems and like too many handouts where people don't have to work and they just get money, I have a problem with that to some extent. Some of them are great for a short period of time and people are going through hard things. But if we take away work from somebody, we're actually stealing part of their identity. And I mean, you're stealing part of why they were created was to add value and to solve problems. So it's hard for me when somebody says, just go ahead and quit working and retire. That'll make your life better. No, it probably won't. You're still going to need to have some value creation and creativity in your life.
I like how you're connecting human beings to the divine. I love that connection, first of all. But you're connecting with kind of the heart cry of people, because I agree with you. I think that we are created to grow and expand, and I think that that's why people they lose momentum in their life, is because they get out of alignment with how they were created. And you're doing a really good job of making that connection, which also ironically debunks the myth that if you retire, everything gets better, and that's just not what we're saying at all.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I think so many parts of life actually have potential to get worse at retirement. They can be better, right? If we know why these things are in our life, right? So we first talk about creation and being problem solvers and workers, but the other one is we're social beings, Jared. So I think work by default allows us to be in a community working towards a common goal. So when we look at that, I want to make sure people understand that I have no problem with solitude. I have no problem with people wanting to, spend more time alone. People to be alone, to re-energize, right, Jared? So if I look at the word solitude, it says, yes, I'm going away to rest, right, to re-energize, versus isolation. That's the piece that I think when we get isolated from others, that can cause a lot of problems in retirement.
And I can't help but think back to the gentleman that you spoke of right away at the beginning of the podcast, that really kind of did it the incorrect way, where you suggested that he should retire. He ends up retiring early. You realize that was some of the worst advice you'd ever given. And then what he did is like the engine started to slow down, and then he started to slide into this life of of solitude. And I would agree with you. I think like even the most extroverted people still want a little bit of peace and quiet to some extent, maybe less than others. But those are two vastly different pieces of the puzzle we're talking about.
Very, very different, Jared. And I think, I had a client it was several months ago actually now, where she realized just how important some conversation was to her, some human interaction in her day. She was becoming very isolated, a widow who had lost her husband, and she told me that she went an entire day without speaking, with never, didn't pick up the phone, didn't go check her mail and run into anybody, she doesn't even have a pet at that time, so wasn't even calling out and opening her voice to say, hey, dog, don't do this or do that, right? She did not open her mouth to speak. No interaction at all, completely isolated. And she said, the next day I was just off. And she realized on her own, this is why. But again, isolation and being nonverbal, for anyone, too much of that is not a good thing.
I'm going to kind of go off track here just a little bit, but I can't help but to think you'll see this floating out online. You'll see this picture of this cabin that's in the woods, completely off the grid, and then people start commenting. They're like, "Oh my gosh, what I wouldn't do just to be there and just be alone, and I just don't have to, I just don't have to be around people." And I get that to some extent. Now, is that because that they were created to live in solitude and never see another human being? Or is it because, could you argue, it's because they're not living in alignment with how they were supposed to be created anyway? Again, to your point, maybe they're working a job and career that they don't like. Maybe they're just not, they're not in alignment with how they were created. So it feels as if like, oh, the answer is to go like live in a mountain cabin away from everybody for the rest of my life. But I think as I hear you talk, what you're saying is that there's something deeper at play if your answer is to run away and disconnect from everything. Would that be a fair statement?
Well, for sure. I think you've probably got some relational issues too. I mean, if that's the point where you just want to get away from everybody, right? Maybe that's needed to re-energize and get you back to, square where you should be
for a time being.
Yeah. But again, we need people in our life, Jared. We need people. That's how God made us. Was to be in community with others. And that's, some of that times that can only be your family. That's fine. But there's people outside your family, your spouse that we need in order to be entirely full. Yeah. Right. There's things that I talk about with friends that I can't, just don't with my wife. My wife can't fulfill all that. There's things that she has with her friends that, just make her full. So I think we just have to be very careful when we get down this trail of just being isolated, again, versus just taking some measured times of solitude. There's definitely a difference. I think people need both.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about things that you've learned, ideas that you've expanded on since the 7 years of first writing your book, Repurposed. And we spent most of our time talking about how you talked about this in your book, but really emphasizing the positive aspects of work. This last piece here, and we can kind of wrap up with this here in a couple of minutes, but really it comes down to identity and how important identity is, which you mentioned in the book, but I think you maybe even, I don't say downplayed it, but didn't expand on that perhaps as much as what you could or should. Just because it is such a massive deal for people.
Well, it is. I think I didn't realize, when you ask anybody what they, who they are, they usually come back with some form of, well, I'm a plumber, I'm a doctor, I'm a financial person, I'm a whatever it is. So there is some identity in what we do at work. There's no doubt about it. I know that our highest calling and like my identity in Christ is where I need to find my identity. But there is, if you've been on a job for 30 or 40 years, you've built a company. You have blood, sweat, tears. Like every day you've done that. That is part of your identity. That is part of your story. You can't simply walk away from that and think that it's going to be fine. You will have number one, the challenge is huge. So just first coming to that realization that it's not easy. I think I used to probably downplay that until I've walked with either business owners or career type individuals who, we say, hey, your identity's in Christ. Well, it's not quite that easy for them because so much of what they've done has become who they are.
Yeah. Well, I think it's deeper. I don't want to say it's deeper. It's not deeper than having your identity found in Christ, but living that out on a day-to-day basis where they can find their identity in something. I don't want to say tangible. That's not the right word, but something that they can see, they can experience. Again, that's why you talk so much about purpose and adding value and being around other people. Those are, I don't want to say less tangible things. That's maybe disrespecting the divine a little bit, but it's something that we can really, touch and experience on a day-to-day basis that we know where our identity is, but there needs to be perhaps some more tangible outlets on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think all of that, we need to be rooted, right, in our true identity in Christ. So when I say I'm a financial professional, I'm a Christian financial professional. I'm doing this to glorify God. My job is to daily glorify God through this work. So when I can tie my identity, yes, work is part of that, but I'm tying it back to my true identity. So someday I'll move on from this career. I'll do something different. My truest identity will still be the same, right? I'm rooted in Christ, right? That's where I find my true identity, but what I'm doing, how I'm impacting people, changes from time to time. And that's how retirees need to look at it.
Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency.